Hello again from Rigel Studios. This is Don Green. I'm an attorney in Nevada and California. Today's presentation, we have a continuing part of a series of timely subject matters and litigation, fresh off the press, and news that's only less than a week old. May we have the first, introducing is Miss Maggie Morgart, who is the Director of Homeland Personal Protection and the Director and CEO of the new company, Women's Defense Network. She's a renowned expert in firearms. I've used her in self-defense cases here in Clark County, and she's also consulted in federal court in Las Vegas and now in Nye County, Nevada. May we have the first slide? This past week to 10 days, we had someone who was murdered in an auto zone with their own weapon, which they were open carrying. I'll give you the floor, Ms. Morgart, on your observations of the situation as you were interviewed by a number of television and radio sources, correct?
That's correct.
If you could tell the listening audience your take and what could have been avoided and what could have been done.
If you go to the media sources, you'll see that a lot has actually come out since then. This is just a few days ago. Mr. Carcano had his life taken from a homeless man, Mr. Pucci. So the big thing that we saw as instructors from our company, Homeland Personal Protection, was did he have the right sort of holster? I mean, it's really looking at that weapon retention. Did he have training to open carry? We don't know why he open carried. I mean, you have a right to open carry, nothing wrong with that. In this case, I know that this homeless man was having a mental breakdown. He attacked and disarmed an open carrier here. In this case, one would say that whenever possible, concealed carry, I think that it doesn't display your level of ability to defend. It's more of an element of surprise, in my opinion. Again, nothing wrong with open carrying. One would say the smart thing would be to take training to know actually how to keep that firearm from being taken away from you. We have a person who lost their life, and you have children who are going to grow up without a dad, a family who's going to grow up without or go through life without a loved one. I think we can learn a lot from this, and I don't think that we should just let something like this just fade away. I think we should learn from this. What can we do better as a society, knowing that people have changed over the years? There were times where people would say that the display of a firearm could actually keep a criminal away. Well, that's not saying that it couldn't. But the biggest thing that we see today is that we have a lot of brazen people out there, like in some of the stories that we've spoke about in the past, where you have a criminal who tries to even disarm a police officer. We talked about that. And in this case, you had somebody who was having a mental breakdown. He said he was trying to defend himself, thinking that someone was trying to attack him. Instead, he was able to get that firearm and shoot Carcano 10 times, killing him dead. This is it's a horrible thing that's happened in our town. And who knows if something like this could even cause a trend, unfortunately. Open carrying, it comes with a great deal of liability, because now you have a possession, an asset that someone might actually try to take away from you, just like a vehicle, like a carjacking, if you will. But in this case, we have a lot to learn from it. How can we do better?
Let's break that down.
Yeah.
Let's break this down. You mentioned the words weapon retention. Let's focus on the person who is carrying the firearm. What should he or she be thinking about before they ever put on that weapon for the holster, weapon retention?
For weapon retention, you want to have a level of retention in the holster itself. So the holster itself should have a level of, when you put the firearm in there, if you were to do a cartwheel or get knocked down or anything like that, that the gun's just not going to fall right out. An open top holster is something that is a holster that the firearm's kept in, I guess, by your own belly, or it's just slipped in there by gravity. But one would say if you jumped up and down that it would fall out. That's just no retention at all. That's an open top holster. You'll see these fabric holsters that have no retention that people will carry either in their pocket or even sturdy hip side, or a holster that's on the hip side where it's just slid in there with maybe like a little clip strap or something. But this is something that if you were to jump up and down, you at least have some sort of retention. A level 3 holster you'll see quite often our law enforcement uses. It actually has a thumb drive. It even has where you have to twist the firearm and then defeat that hood to even get the gun out. It takes a lot more for someone else to get it from you. So there's multiple different types of holsters out there. But the best one, if you're going to open carry, would be something that has some sort of button like a thumb drive, or twisting the gun out to actually get it out, or even that hood that they have to defeat to get it out.
So getting the right holster, it's just not buying the firearm at the gun show or the gun dealer, then looking at this real cool eel skin or stingray skin holster. You need to take a look at the ultimate problem of drawing that weapon, to get it out as quickly as you can, but also to prevent someone else to get that holster, that weapon out. Is that correct?
Right. That with anything, it takes practice. If you can practice with that firearm and with that holster, I think that the consistency of using that firearm, going to the range and carrying it in a way that you would otherwise carry it on your body. Just keep in mind that it is probably important for people to know that the firearm should be where your hands are most often. That's even another level of being able to protect the firearm. I'm not sure where Mr. Carcano actually had his firearm or how it was so easily taken from him. I know that he was a small statured individual who was overcome by this crazed individual who took his firearm and used it against him. There's other cases where in some of the reporting that I've seen, somebody sticks it in their back pocket. You have areas where you can't go around and have your hands protecting that gun the whole time, but at least here, if you see hands coming towards you, you can deflect and move away and kind of use your hands, because the gun is here in that proximity of forward of the hips, whether it's appendix carry or 3 o'clock carry. There's ways that you can protect that firearm from being taken away. So that's that retention of the firearm, you yourself being able to deflect somebody from trying to take that gun.
Okay, you mentioned 3-level retention holster. Define that for our audience.
3-level retention would be that when you first put the firearm into the holster, it clicks in place. Then you also have a thumb drive that you would actually have to defeat that would otherwise also cause the hood to come down. So you have that thumb drive that defeats the hood, and that's how, for us, the person who's going to open carry the firearm, if I'm going to open carry my gun, I want to be able to have a holster that works well with me, but also protects the firearm as well. So it's a dual situation where it's working together.
So would you do you agree that training is very important when it comes to proper use and carrying of the firearm in a proper holster?
For sure. I will tell you that when we first start teaching students how to deploy a handgun from a holster, we're actually teaching them from a sturdy outside the waistband holster, and then we kind of we will graduate to that inside the waistband and finding a holster that fits best for them. That's that concealability, that controllability, being able to deploy it, or even if it's outside the waistband, what is that level 3 or level 2 holster that they may actually want to learn to use, while now even applying those complex motor skills and potentially responding to a perpetrator who's trying to offer them that personal violence.
Let's look at this next slide here. Okay. And thank you for that analysis.
Of course, training and practice.
This portion here is, we're talking about what's happening with the United States Supreme Court and other courts, federal courts, to explain to the audience what's going on. The ghost gun, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the regulation, or the regulation which prevents firearms. And I predicted that the Supreme Court would rule against these ghost gun manufacturers, because what is the harm in manufacturing a weapon and then having it have a serial number? It doesn't affect your right to possess and carry that firearm. It's a matter of regulation. And I kept telling people, your car's got a VIN number on it. Most phones have got serial numbers on them. Your TV's got a serial number on it. Hell, if you look at a box of cereal, you'll see there's got all these codes and barcodes. It's all part of proper regulation geared towards a reasonable interpretation of the law. And go back to that slide, please. And we have Ramini. The Ramini decision that came out last year was where Ramini had a really bad record and had a temporary protective order. And the Fifth Circuit, a court of appeals based in New Orleans, ruled in favor of Ramini. But the U.S. Supreme Court, in a very strong decision against Ramini and for the government, was that Ramini was indicted, but his conviction was overturned by the Fifth Circuit. But the Ramini decision only applies to temporary protective or restraining orders. It does not apply to battery domestic violence cases. So some of the U.S. Supreme Court's sending cases back to the various circuits, as with the 11th Circuit, is to evaluate their particular decisions in light of the Ramini case, which says that no, certain classes of people with certain types of crimes, because of the historical analogies, because of the nature of the crime, are not going to be able to possess firearms. Can we go back to that slide, please? And we have the Texas private sales lawsuit that's going on, but important to Nevada is the following. We have a California ammo tax injunction. We have a California ammo tax temporary restraining order. Those are going to be appealed. And Ms. Morgart, do you believe that Nevada will soon have a tax on ammunition?
I would hope not. We pay enough taxes on all the assets that we purchase. I don't really feel we need an ammo tax.
Okay, go back to that slide, please. Now, we have various courts are toying with. There's the Colorado ammo tax lawsuit. There's the California decisions on the ammo tax, California litigation, which is working its way up, and then everything the U.S. Supreme Court said in the Bruin decision, New York pistol decision 3 years ago, is talking about firearms litigation history and firearms history. They're not saying that we should go back to muskets, but they're saying they should go back to properly evaluate the nature of the weapon itself, whether it has something to do with the historical traditions as to these firearms, and whether there's something reasonable about the possession of the firearm, or reasonable as far as the regulation is concerned. May we have the next slide, please? Okay. Important is that now almost 6 years ago, we were involved in the Duncan magazine litigation out of the United States District Court for the Southern District of San Diego, and Judge Benitez, who was appointed by Bush II, ruled that the magazine ban in California was unconstitutional. That was appealed to the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit panel eventually said, well, maybe there's something here, maybe there isn't something here, but they ruled against it. Then they finally issued the ruling almost 6 or 7 years later, stating that the magazine ban is constitutional, and now that's being taken up to the Supreme Court. Okay, go back to the same slide. And we've got Antonyuk versus New York. There's a New York federal case going on right now, and that is let's call it the sensitive location case. Tell us, Ms. Morgart, what do you interpret and what do you tell your students? What is a sensitive location where they can't carry firearms?
Well, they definitely can't carry firearms on school property without written permission. Carrying firearms into the airport, they must open carry. They can't conceal carry. You can open carry probably in more places than you can conceal carry that are seen as a place that is safe enough to go. And then when it comes to their conceal carry, I would just say do it well. Even though printing is not illegal, I always feel like your firearm should be your best kept secret, but always know the laws that you need to follow, when you're going to go to certain places and how you should do that responsibly.
Can we get that slide back, please? Okay. The Nguyen case, Nguyen, is pronounced Nguyen. There's a one gun per 30 days case is going to work its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the ATF arm brace case has not yet been decided by the Supreme Court. I expect it any day now, starting with the number of decisions probably coming out in June. We know that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against the ghost guns. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the manufacturers and the gun owners for the bump stock, saying that it was not a machine gun, it was not a National Firearms Act weapon which required registration.
Yep.
And we had a lot of people that did get their tax stamps when people did not want to take off their old collapsible arm braces. I took mine off, destroyed the others. We cut one in half so that we could use it in front of our patrons at gun shows, where I keep it in my truck where I can show attorneys who I might go to their office for consultation. And we have a tube which looks like a silencer, but it's actually a flash suppressor, and we show them that this is a tube flash suppressor. This is the bump stock tube. Well, it's not tube. This is the tube where the spring goes in the back of an AR platform. And we've had people that come to us and say, well, how come the AK-47 doesn't have that tube in the back? I look at them and I say, well, you need to understand the operational characteristics of your firearm. First of all, the plunger is on top. Because that's that long tube on an AK-47. It doesn't have that. So there's some Kel-Tec semi-automatic rifles that don't have that, because everything is in that technology that's contained in the stock, in the forestock itself. So may I have the next slide, please? Okay. Now, Trump and restoration. Our final thoughts. We have a president who has said that he will do what he can and to preserve and protect the Second Amendment. I have seen, and I've been a lawyer 42 years, and I have never seen so many gun-related cases and Second Amendment cases in the past 5 years than I have in my entire career. In fact, it took the Supreme Court from the 1860s, 1870s, almost over 100 years to rule in the tax stamp case in the 30s, and then another 70, 80 years before they came up with the Heller decision in McDonald. And but now there's a slew of them. And I know that the Supreme Court is taking a very cautious approach to that. People need to read these decisions and not just the highlights. So overall, Maggie, what do you think about what's going to happen with the Nevada legislature? Do you think in Nevada, do you think that it's going to become more strict or less strict when it comes to firearms and firearms possession?
I feel that with this administration and some of our politicians that we have in place, that I don't really feel that it's going to be stricter. One would only hope it's not going to become stricter. I think that they're starting to see that we are going to need for people to better understand their right to keep and bear arms. Again, with education is really important. I think that if people seek more training, I think that it's going to show that we're doing a better job as individuals who can own firearms with our guns to do better work. I just really feel like people should really open their eyes and not just pound their chest about, it's my right, I'm going to do it, I'm going to just do it. I really feel they need to show what a great job we can actually do.
Yes.
That gun people anybody who owns a firearm isn't a criminal. I mean, they pass a background check. They are keeping their guns away from unauthorized users. They are, many cases, people are taking training. There is a lot of people who are taking training these days because they're starting to see guns have changed.
Yes.
What capacity am I going to use this firearm? Am I going to travel with it? We get a lot of snowbirders in town. You know, they're going to travel in their RVs from one place to another. There's some great websites out there that you can go to. You can go to my website, hpptraining.com, and see that we have so many laws on there and other areas where you can look into how you can and can't carry firearms across this amazing, great nation.
Yes, and we have in Nevada since 2020, we had the storage mandate where a parent, a person who owns firearms can be responsible if those weapons are not properly stored. And now we have a bill which has passed the legislature, and this is no sale of semi-automatic weapons or shotguns to people between the ages of 18 and 21. Well, yes, there are going to be some problems. There are going to be some exceptions, because how does that jive with the fact that in 2017, the Nevada legislature gave our military members, our Nevada military members, a great bonus, which said that if you are between the ages of 18 and 21, and you are enlisted in the military or the National Guard or the Army Reserve or the Reserve Forces, you may apply and shall be granted a concealed weapon permit, even though you might not be able to buy the firearm from a firearms dealer, which requires, the ATF requires you to be 21. And now we have this other law, we have the storage law, and then we have the law that's passed this recent legislature just this month concerning the prohibited sale to people under the age of 21. If you have comments, I'd certainly like to hear them, but you can contact me, Don Green, at 702-409-8239. I am versed in California and Nevada law as far as firearms are concerned. I've been a lawyer in both states 42 years now, and of course you'll see the contact information for Ms. Morgart and her classes, and visit her website at
hpptraining.com. We've got lots of training classes all through the valley, and we do train nationwide. We do travel and train quite a bit, and we are actually on the PDN tour right now with Rob Pincus and the Personal Defense Network, which is pretty awesome. There's 15 of us nationwide, so look around.
Okay. Thank you again. Don Green signing off.